Yeah.
We're in progress now.
Okay. So
Oh,
you're in charge of that. I'm gonna go out on bus supervision. Good to see you, Peter. And I will let you guys chat. Hopefully Tom and some others can hop on, and I maybe I'll be able to hop on once I'm done with buses, and I have a meeting with a teacher at 9 though. So we'll
love to
see.
have you pop in and say hello and give us your 2 bits on whatever we're talking about, George.
All right. Talk to you later.
Take care. Bye bye. Hey, Peter, your volume, Peter.
Oh, okay. That work?
Good to see you.
You too. How's the new digs?
Well, I'm trying to show off things there. I don't know if you can see it, but is that a
Yeah,
hockey? Yeah, on
I
the
got
one
Hockey
side.
Canada. I got some pennants.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I just made a little backdrop, so I like yours there. Tell me a bit about your sweaters, worth the stories.
Well, I've got sweaters from the teams that I've coached from prep school up. Um, I'm missing a midget program one, but I actually got an all-star one, coach an all-star team, and it has all the kids sign it, so I got that one kind of separate in the closet. But the furthest one, the blue one, is Central Connecticut State University. That was a ACHA club hockey team. That's where I got my feet wet in the college game. I coached there for 7 years. The next one is the Gunnery School,
Yeah.
which is the prep school that I coached at for a dozen years. And then the last one is actually Post University's first
Yeah.
jersey that we got, which is a interesting story with that. Wally is, I started that program very quickly, hired in April, and had to put a team together for that September. And one of the things was uniforms, et cetera, et cetera. So we had our uniforms all lined up and ready to go. And I would check on them periodically during the summer. And the individual I talked to said, "Yeah, you're good. You're good. We should see him around this time, that time." This time, that time began to approach, and I wasn't seeing any jerseys. So the rep looked into it, and the individuals whose job it was to place the order um, actually failed to press the send button.
Huh.
And the order that was put in the end of May, come September, still had never been submitted. So I had to find at that time, the school colors, which have changed dramatically since then, were green uh, and black. So I searched and I found that at that time, the Dallas Stars
Yeah.
were the closest to the colors. And
Yeah.
that was a stock Dallas Star jersey that they happened to have. And we played the first season with those jerseys before we got the real ones.
Huh. Now I don't know the colors of jerseys, but there's there's been a debate. Maybe it's just me, but black jerseys they make you bigger. Do you? And I know in Calgary the girls teams they're either red or white teams, and they all want a black jersey, whether they're the red team or the white team. The black is the third jersey. They have red and white, even though they might be team red or team black, and they don't have black jerseys. It's just red and white, and they're either red, white, or black teams. So now they've getting a second jersey. Every team has a third jersey, the black one, and it's sort of a big deal out here. People thinking of black helmets, their own helmets to stick out, and I found out just a couple days ago that Jordan, he's recruited a player and they're going to the Alberta competition. And the players he's recruited to play AAA, she doesn't have sort of the game pants that scouts, coaches, the players wear their home team game pants, and you can tell where they're from,
Yeah.
or their helmets. But he's got unique black helmets, so he's put the black helmets on them. So I don't know if you're superstitious or not with that kind of
Well,
stuff. But
no, I'm not. But it's funny you say that because that is the third jersey of choice, even down here, is a black jersey.
yeah,
But like that point you made about the kid with the pants there, the player with the pants that don't identify where they're from.
yeah,
When I was at Gunnery, our guys would go and play summer showcases and that where the college scouts would be. And so we encouraged them, like, you take your Gunnery helmet with your Gunnery sticker and wear that.
yeah.
And we had this one player who, when he played in the summer, he always wore a red helmet. So we asked him, we said, we always give you our, your stuff from the season to wear so you can be identified where you play. How come you don't do that? He said, when I play this summer, he said, I want every college scout asking, who's that kid in the red helmet? And as it turned out, he had a 4-year career at Colgate University, and he was a Hobie Baker finalist. So I guess the red helmet worked.
Hell, Tom, welcome to the show. And I'm going to get you to test your sound. And Jordan has courteously given me access to his Zoom and the ability to record. Whether or not I'm going to edit much of it or not, I don't know. But we're talking about uniform colors and superstition, and we just finished talking about the black jersey. But I don't know if it matters to you, Tom. A third jersey, everybody seems to want them, and what Peter, you mentioned getting noticed. One of the things I don't like players to do at tryouts is wear different colored socks.
2 different color socks, you mean?
Yeah,
The one on each leg, yeah, I have a hard time with that. I always make the joke they have another pair just like him at home.
Anyway, Hell, what's up in your world? I don't see her face. You just might be on, but away from the desk. Tom?
I'm here. Let's see. Hold on.
Okay, we'd love to see her.
My smiling face.
I sure. There you are, buddy.
How do
he
you
is.
get so you can see everybody?
I see everybody right now. Everybody's on the right side of
Well,
my
I
screen.
don't. I just see the person talking and myself.
Upper right-hand corner, it says view. There's a little grid.
Yeah.
Put your mouse up there and click on that grid.
Speaker view, gallery view, gallery view. There you are.
Gallery.
Now I see it.
Wally, try one thing. Try right now, the way you're being viewed is it cuts off just above your eyes. So either you move further or that's better. Yep. And I don't know if you have some sunlight coming in. Does anybody else see like a blue line coming across the middle?
Yeah,
I see it.
Yeah.
probably by the window or something.
Yeah. All gone. Oh, back. Nope.
Does that do
Yeah.
it?
That
That's-
seems to do it, right?
That's better.
Yeah. There you go.
We're ready for the movies.
That's it. Makeup.
I
No,
love that.
talking about what you're talking about, Wally, is my team got black jerseys about a month left in the season. And since we are the fire black, it kind of suited, and that was their preferred jersey if we were the dark team.
Yeah. Well, Hell, what about you and jersey colors? Do you give a tinker's damn or what?
Well, in the high school, we kept the jerseys. I mean, we bought really high quality jerseys and those, they were NHL level jerseys. We only played 12 games in home and 12 games away. So they would last for, they'd last for 3 years or 4 years. And they were blue or white. And Now they've gone, now you can buy them, and those jerseys were expensive. They were a couple $100 a pop because they were tackle twill stitched, with all the logos and all the stuff. Now they just paint them on, or they whatever that with the lightweight fabrics. When I left the last year I was in high school, the athletic director wanted to buy a third jersey. I'm going, why? I mean, why are we doing? Why are we spending money? Why are we going to spend $1,000 on another set of jerseys?
Yeah.
Now in the youth ranks, the kids they get the jerseys and they take them home. I mean, they own them at the end of the season. They get new ones. I love your tryout thing though, because these kids want to have they come with mismatched socks. And a few years ago, I was at a tryout, and actually the best player on the ice was wearing pink socks.
Huh.
And I went and told the guy running, I said, tell that kid to get rid of those pink socks. And anyways, and he did. I mean, he came the next day with the blue, with our program socks.
Yeah.
What we have going on here is we have a lot of kids who they go to hockey academy.
Yeah.
And so everything, they show up with the hockey academy, they have the name of the academy stenciled into the socks.
Yeah.
And then they have their own equipment bags, and they have their own helmet decals, and so they all show up with this breakaway equipment. Used to be they would show up with their AAA off-season helmets and stuff. I guess no, you play here, you wear our stuff. I mean, come on, let's get with this program. But it's kind of a losing battle, I guess, in today's world. Everybody wants to be noticed for something, so
Yeah.
they want to be different than somebody. So,
Well, I want to talk about that. Right now, Tom's U15 team and the girls in Alberta, they attended tryout camps for the province. And there's 3 South teams and 3 North teams. And there was a draft held. And the rule, the teams are picked now so that there might have been, 120 kids trying out for one team, or maybe 300 for
It was 3 teams.
3 teams, and they're drafted. But now they're moving to, we only have 6 teams. It's a competition in 2 weeks. And of course, it's the program of excellence, looking to evaluate players to become the number 1 players on the provincial team to attend a national championship representing their province. And at that one, that's where they're scouted with the national teams. But all along the way, especially this weekend, there'll be all kinds of NCAA and CIS and college scouts there. So one of the rules Hockey Alberta has is you have to cover your logo. You can't wear anything that sticks out. So Greg Parrott, who's the director of operations with Girls Hockey Calgary, he has we interviewed a coach yesterday, and he brought his sort of a backpack in, and it had the Fire logo taped over. And the person we were interviewed said, "Oh, you're getting ready for the Alberta Cup, eh?" "Yeah, I am." So they go to a great deal of trouble trying to neutralize the promotion of, my school had so many kids invited, and they made this team, they made this level. So it's all about promoting their programs. And I think that it's really tough to keep it neutral, but you do. And these poor kids are going through their lives being evaluated to be picked by somebody. And that's one of the topics I just wrote down this morning, Tom. One of your players who just happened to have, I think, and I think you do too, the highest IQ on your team, didn't get selected. And she had a pretty good camp, according to everybody I talked to. But of course, they knew this girl from the season. But she's gone to a camp with coaches that have never seen her, evaluating her and rating her. And she didn't get picked. And I think it was you that mentioned this particular girl, Denholm. Anytime she played with somebody, they became better. Can you talk about that player and when that happened and how valuable it was to you?
Well, our opinion, she's our smartest forward. And she's fantastic on the boards. And she sees the ice, and she was like our third top scorer, I think. And I have no idea because, we had to watch all the Calgary girls in the tryouts. There's 160 tried out. We graded them all. And some of them that we graded like the 80th and all that made this team that got like 5 points all year. She got 25.
Yeah.
So I don't know what in the world people were thinking because I didn't go to those tryouts, but you never know what people are looking for. She's not that big, but she's not that small.
Yeah.
And it's just a mystery to me. But I mean, our top scorer in the provincials didn't
Yeah.
make it either. And she's a first year, and she grew 4 inches this year.
Yeah.
And she's a really good player. So, yeah, I was kind of baffled by about 4 players not making it that are definitely better. I know the Calgary girls, and they're definitely better than them, but that's everybody has their own opinion, I guess, what a hockey player is.
Well, that's the point I wanted to make is whether you're a coach, scout, or parent, what do they notice? They don't notice hockey sense. They notice the person that goes coast to coast, toe drags, carries the puck, has the puck all the time, competes for the puck. Once they get it, they may not do anything constructive with it, let alone, pass it. And so my question is, there's a gap. We've got lots of skilled players in what we call the elite league, but they don't have offensive hockey sense, limited offensive hockey sense. And I've witnessed it watching some recent hockey. The best players in the province on one of the teams against another team that all played elite hockey, and there was minimal passing. It was the same old coast to coast. Do what you do well to get selected. They're getting ready for the Alberta camp, and when they go to this 6-team competition, it's going to be the flash and dash, and at no point will there be assessed on their hockey IQ. So the biggest, fastest, best looking players on the ice, they're going to be picked. George Allen coached NFL football. He had a quote. I love it. And it was beware of the player that looks good, because you notice them and you might be influenced by how they stand out. But why do they stand out? It's a skill set beyond other people, but the ability to play the game, it's a team game, remains to be the underlying separating factor. So I'd like to ask you guys the question. Is there a gap at your levels in hockey sense with the players? And is the gap because we don't recognize it and we don't know how to teach it? Can we talk about the gap? I call it a gap. No hockey sense.
Well, Darryl Belfry's been on the coach's site talking about lack of, great skills, but not hockey IQ. In our program this last year, our number 1 rated player that came through our tryouts was uncoachable. And fortunately, he left and went on to play JV hockey at his school. But to your point on, I did some evaluations for our postseason district team, and you go and you can see what program the kids are from by their helmets, their helmet stickers. Oh, these kids are all from Maple Grove. These kids are all from, they're all from Wayzata. Oh, and by the way, of the 10 evaluators, 4 are from Maple Grove and 4 of them are from Wayzata. And so, those are the kids. Although one of my kids made the team, so that was good. They recognized, because we're a single A team, and those other kids are mostly double A kids. And so I think tryouts are terrible. They're hard. I've done a lot of outside evaluating over the years where I come in and, so I don't know anybody. And boy, when you got 35 kids on the ice and you got an hour and you got to grade them on 3 or 4 things. I mean, you only look at every kid about 35 seconds or 45 seconds. I mean, and then you try to go they do it on an app on your phone called Team Genius. And then you get down to about 15 minutes left and you go through the list going, oh, geez, I haven't seen this kid. Where is this kid? I haven't seen him yet. So I try to sit somewhere where I can see that, close enough to the bench where I can see the numbers on the jerseys. So then I wait for that kid to go out on the ice. But that kid, that's the only look he's probably going to get from me. And but I also say that in most parts, the kids end up on the right teams. Now, I did have a call last week from a father of is a high school player, and he's a client of mine. And he's he's a top 4D from one of the top high schools in the state, trying out for what they call the Midwest Elite League. And one of his teammates made the team. And his teammate is a wing on the 4th line. And had scored 3 points all year. This kid's a D. He's playing, a lot of minutes every game. And he had like 12 or 13 points during the season as a defenseman. So his dad's going, what is this? And I said, this is what we call hockey. So anyways, boys, I have to run. I'm sorry. I'm glad you're back on. I've got to go to my office and pay my bills a little bit. So, Wally, I'm glad you got into a new spot. I hope you're comfortable in your new home. And we'll see you guys next Thursday. No, I'm having my shoulder replaced next Thursday. So
Oh my goodness.
might be a couple of weeks out till I see you guys again. So
Hal,
Good luck with that.
yeah,
Oh,
thanks. Well, thanks a lot.
before you leave, Hal, I edited the Luke Chen interview in a podcast,
Okay.
12 minutes.
Okay.
I just listened to it. It's good.
Please listen to it, because he talks about, he's one of those guys that doesn't stick out.
Yeah.
And he worked with Adam Oates,
Yep.
who taught him how to think and apply,
Mhm.
not improve his skills. They are what they are at that
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
And that's the best interview I've seen that relates to the topic, the point I want to make. I'm so impressed with the skills. They're adequate. They're good enough. They're more than good enough.
Right.
Ability to make decisions using those skills are lacking. So that's what I hope we can continue to talk about, and have a good look at that, Helen. I look forward to hearing from you on it.
You got it. Talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay, I'll tell you
Yeah.
the best evaluation I ever saw was when my son was playing in this association. And what they did is they ranked all the kids first according to where they played and the coaches report the year before. And then they broke them into about 6-player pods. And a couple of guys watched only that pod. So that, of course, they were from, ranked already. But what you had to do is you had to move your top player up and your bottom player down. And all of the pods were doing this. So that player, they all got watched and people got moved according to how they were playing. And I thought it was about as good of a unbiased evaluation as you could get.
What age, Tom?
That was all through the Trails West. It was their official way to do it.
Yeah.
And they only did it for a few years, but I thought that was by far the best method I'd seen. You need about 20 evaluators, but
Well, Tom, I hope I can get back to that topic, but I see Greg Revak's name's popped up. Craig, are you on?
Listening in.
Good. I'm gonna ask Peter a question, and I'll let you consider thinking that question in your capacity. Peter, what are the sort of the pros and cons of the evaluation player selection process wherever you've been involved?
Well,
Yeah.
Wally, I do between 6 and 7 different organizations in the state every year for tryouts. They do spring tryouts here. And it's everything from youth hockey, U8 to U14 to girls, AA, U10, U12, U14, U16, U19. And I mean, my approach is like you said, it's easy to see who the player is with a bunch of skill that loves the puck. That part's easy to see. But what I try to pay attention to is I try to pay attention to what the options are. Like I'll see what your options are when you have that puck, and is that option being presented to that player? Does that player see that option? Or more importantly, when we start to talk about hockey IQ, and I really enjoy doing this with evaluating defensemen, is that defender or even that forward taking away the option for that player that should be there? How are they doing? Right. So it's not always that, okay, that defenseman picked the puck up in their end, they wheeled up ice, they went around 2 or 3 people, they hammered a shot into the goalie's stomach, right? Skill, skating, and that. I'm very interested in a defender or a forward that can actually defend, because the offensive pieces of your game are pretty clear. They're pretty evident, right? But what are you doing defensively? Are you taking away opportunities, right? Are you a player that is limiting the other team's chances? It's nothing coming from your side of the ice because you're doing a good job taking away those opportunities, right? And one of the things that I see all the time that really actually kind of annoys me that coaches use this carte blanche is a player's plus minus, right? They'll say, "Oh, hey, that player scored 10 goals for you. That's pretty good. You know, at the Division III level, that's pretty good for a player to be able to pop 10 goals in a season. There's nothing wrong with that." Yeah, but they were minus 10. Well, were they a minus 10, or did they happen to be on the ice when those goals were scored? Like, was it their defensive responsibility that was causing that turnover, was causing that play to go in the back of the net, or did they have their player every time? So essentially their line was at -10, we'll say, but not necessarily that player. So looking into it deeper and evaluating what those players are able to do when they do not have the puck. So that to me is very important when I'm evaluating. Oh, I can't hear you, Wally.
I phoned a friend while you were talking, Kerry Bracco. He had an evaluation process similar to what Tom talked about. And actually, it's the best one I've ever heard of or seen. And it was for selecting novice teams back in his day. And he was in charge of that age class program, and they had to tier 11 teams. And they decided to have 2 number 1 teams because they were pretty talented. And using that criteria for selection and development, they ended up winning 9 city championships. And I'm hoping to get him to come on, and if he doesn't, I'll elaborate on it, but we struggle with that. Craig, what's your take on evaluation, player selection, making a team at any level?
Well, we have spring tryouts as well here in Columbus, Ohio. You know, I try to stay as far away as possible just because I'm the high school coach for a local team. So I don't want to be overly involved with a lot of that. So I just kind of give my sense, I'll watch and like, here's the kids. Like, I don't want to hear from the coaches of like who they're taking and all of that. I just want to give you a list based on hockey talent alone of what I see of kids that show potential. Not just like, because obviously the summer is so long, there's gonna be so much change. Just like who has that base that can go far. Obviously, there's much more. What are the off ice dynamics? Work ethic, coachability, etc. That go into it. But I just try to give my 2 cents on what this looks like, and then what are the attractive items that I'm seeing. Because obviously you can find faults in any player and give a reason not to take them. But sometimes I find that reasons for not taking players is almost laziness of the coach, as in like, yeah, I really don't want to fix that. Or like, yeah, I don't know how to coach that. Rather than just seeing, okay, here's the hockey playing ability. What can we do with this player to help them best? And actually go coach. Because, there's obviously a track record from the season prior. I kind of like that pod idea of like, here's our rankings before tryout. We'll move you guys around as needed. To get looks, because a player that looks great at house level may really struggle as they move up because maybe they don't have the tools of the trade yet to play with travel hockey players. But yeah, it's always an interesting time. I don't know the fix other than maybe national governing bodies dictating you can't have tryouts till later. But a few months at especially the youngest of ages makes a massive difference.
Well, I have a recommendation that all the scouts, evaluators, I don't care if they're there, knowing the kids and whatnot. Hal mentioned that the evaluators were all sort of connected to the Association of Kids Trying Out and therefore would be biased, and that's a fact. Now, my concern in evaluation is trying to make them look at it in a deeper way. So this is what I'm suggesting is you can have a group of coaches on the one day evaluate only skill, and you have another group of coaches evaluate only hockey IQ, thinking ability. Don't worry about anything else. And the third group of evaluators evaluates intangibles, compete, worth ethic, coachability. And they change from one day to the other, trying to rank and assess only those traits and score those 3 traits. The skills stand out, but let somebody really assess that and evaluate that by themselves, but make sure everybody gets a chance to, are they making good decisions? Are they giving the puck away? Are they afraid to compete for the puck? And when they have to look at a player in that way, 3 different ways, they're going to be more objective because it is a subjective process. So the gentleman that introduced this, Tom, it's similar to your idea. He had 3 stations on the ice, and all the players were mixed up talent-wise. The top players were with the weakest at the 3 stations on the first day. And they ended up creating 3 skill ranking groups from that first day. But they kept the top skilled group smaller. The largest group would have been the middle, And the beginners or the weakest group would have been smaller than the middle group. And as the week progressed, Tom, much like you said, they were able to move kids up to the more skilled group. And they never tried to move kids down, but they did between the weakest group and the middle group. But they kept that ultimate high group, tier 1, 2 kids together at their station. And they had 3 stations every practice, every evaluation, skill, compete, and game. Small area. And he used that evaluation system and they got results on it because their coaches realized that that's what it takes to become a complete player. So does that make sense, guys? I just wanted to bring it up.
Well, they're all aspects that you have to work on for sure.
What was Wally, did you get any input of what was a parent reaction? As far as maybe a player that was, let's call him maybe middle to higher end of your lowest, getting the opportunity to get up with the middle and then maybe try to progress up, but not getting that. I just wonder about when they're separated like that. Like it makes sense. There's no question it makes sense. But did they get, not that it's here nor there, but did they get pushback from the parents as far as, my son or my daughter, my child didn't get the opportunity to be with more skilled players and show what they could do?
Well, to begin with, they prevented it because the players got to be with the best players. And you can see the difference. It's obvious. So you might end up in let's just pick a number of 45 kids. In theory, you want 15, 15, but you might end up having only 5 kids in the skill group, highest, working together at one station. They would be the skill group. And we call them the Eagles. And the middle group, well, you might have 20. And then the beginning group, you might have another 5. But you end up playing with the numbers so that literally you might even have more beginner kids. But to get to that last group, you can see if they compete at that level, which is sort of what Tom seemed to go through with his son. They rotated the kids so they could compete against the top kids. And could they compete? So from the get-go, because they get a chance to go against the best player to compete, they're able to judge, and the parents see the difference.
What kind of time frame do they have? Like, is there, like, how many tryouts are we talking? Like, is there a week of tryouts? Is it 2 days?
I'm not sure. I was hoping to have.
I think that process was about 5 sessions. And then what they would do is there was about 5 groups, I think. And then they'd send out a thing of what group your kid was in the next practice. And they do the same thing. They put them in little pods and evaluate the pods, and you go up and down and the movement. And so it was the best. It was the best one I've seen, because a lot of the other ones, just the parents, like I think Hal was saying about the parents of different teams volunteered to do the evaluation, and they're all buddies all the off season. So it's once you get, if you make the number 1 team right now as a 10-year-old, it's in the common way that people just volunteer and do the evaluations. You're probably going to play the number 1 team in that association all the way through, even though you might not have improved and other kids have improved. It's really hard to you know, if it's just volunteer people doing it, really hard to move up or down. Well, it's easy to move down, I guess, if you're terrible and nobody knows you, but that was my experience before that method.
Yeah, it sounds like you need that to be effective. You need, like you're saying, Tom, that 4 or 5 days. Because here it's mostly it's 2 days, maybe on the odd occasion you might get a third day of tryouts, but generally speaking, it's 2 days of tryouts and that's that.
I'll give you an example. My son didn't grow till grade 11. He grew 6 inches in grade 11. So he was really small, and he plays in the Pee Wee team, a 2 team. They have about 8 tiers. So he wasn't the one, he was on the 2 team. And they won the city championship, and he was the top scorer. And then the next year, the tryouts, they wanted me to coach the Bantam 1 team. I said, well, I'm not going to coach unless my son's on it. And so anyways, the trials, but that same group of people that had been evaluating forever were evaluating. I said, and those guys will not pick him on the number 1 team because he should have been on it last year. And so they played a game. The score was 6-5. He got 3 goals, 2 assists. And then I said, so will you watch him, to the guy that asked me to coach the 1 team? And the guys, they didn't pick him. He wasn't on the team. And he said, well, number 57 out there, you realize he got 3 goals, 2 assists, eh? They said, there's a lot more to hockey than goals and assists. And he said, I have to overrule you here. And he's going to be on the team. So anyways, he was on the team. We won the provincial championship, and he was our top scorer. But that's how hard it is to, you know, when you get a group that, if that's the kind of evaluation you do, it's hard to break into the higher levels.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I mean, we're the group I work for, we're brought in as an independent evaluator, right? We don't have any skin in the game. We just pick the kids who we think fit there, and they do with that certainly as they will. The other thing USA Hockey does is, Hockey Canada probably does something similar, I'm guessing, is so our rosters aren't frozen until the end of December. So that gives that boy or girl the opportunity to, you know, go to skating lessons, we'll say, or skills or whatever they do in the summer, physically grow. If they're on like the B team and they show that they could hang with the A team, they have the opportunity, they can move that kid up.
I think Hockey Canada has that till December 10th, but
Okay.
like our association doesn't have it. So we have a tryout, then we have a draft. We go from 8 to 6 to 4, then we draft 3 teams. And you have about 5 extra players that you decide by a certain date, which isn't it's only like 2 weeks after the tryout. And then you're fixed. You can't move. If you made obviously a bad mistake like we did this year, there was 1 defenseman we didn't take and 1 we did take. We couldn't do anything about it. We had to stick with who we had, and that was like by September 10th. But Hockey Canada, I think you can adjust your roster till early December, like you just said.
Okay. Yeah, that just gives that player opportunity to work on things, and sometimes that can be a great kid because if they're on the B team, maybe that's not where they want to be. And maybe it lights a little bit of a fire under them, and they say, "Yeah, you know what? I want to work all summer, and I want to show that I can be somewhere." You get that kid every so often, which is fun.
Well, I think what happened with the girl I'm talking about, she just had the skills, and we kept on playing. She just throws a puck away all the time, and that was a knock on her that she didn't make it. And then I think she was just really nervous because she played for us. She was an affiliate. She played about 10 games for us, and she was a really smart player. But sometimes their nerves get in the way in tryouts too.
Yep.
Craig, you're coaching high school hockey?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious because there wouldn't be a tryout, or is there a degree of a tryout and 2 tiers of teams in your school at that age?
So my program for the first time, we are going to be I'll be adding a JV team. So I've got to hire a JV coach for
Yeah,
them. Fortunately, I think I got a really nice guy coming in, but yeah, we've never really done tryouts, just kind of show up and play with no expectations of ice time. Because there's a wide range of talent level there. It'll be nice because a lot of times I would just have kids go back to youth hockey for a year because it's like, well, you're not ready for varsity hockey, but you're not quite like you just need that bridge. So it'll be nice to have a junior varsity stepping stone for those kids
Yeah.
for this upcoming season. But yeah, I have one kid that is a potential cut, so I need to have a conversation with him start of the summer so he knows what the stakes are. But other than that, usually they've self-selected themselves out by now if they don't want to play. Otherwise, they love it and they're in and they're working.
well, Tom's situation and last year to this year is a good example. The scouts, his staff, every one of the staffs of the female teams, they evaluated in detail. And I don't think anybody did the detail that Tom's son, who's helping him coach, did. Like he had a number of traits. He had them ranked in their traits. The conversations, I just stood back and watched every group discuss players, and they're impartial because they're not parents. And some of the discussions were amazing. You can see that they knew a lot about the game and they were seeing great things, and it was a great process. In the end, I think Tom son, he used a statistical ranking based on a numerical system he had for the traits and came up with, the best team possible relative to what he felt he wanted. Now, last year, there was a different team, same coaching staff, same age level, and Tom made changes in the way he selected this year, and the season was a lot smoother, a lot more successful. Tom,
Well, you know what? The season itself, no, just the parent group was different. We selected parents this year, where the year before we knew nobody because we hadn't coached that level before. Because the win-loss records were very similar.
and how did that negatively impact your coaching last year?
Well, you've got some people that are undermining what you're doing, and I'm sure their kids are hearing it, right?
Yeah.
And like I got an email from, this is a for instance, an Olympic gold medal winner in speed skating, and his daughter does short track, but she also played. She's not very big, and we're playing the end of the game against one of the country teams, and she goes down the boards, and this girl stands her up, not on the boards, but really flattens her pretty good. We're beating them by about 3 goals, so it's one of those angry hits. And then the girl got a penalty, and he wrote me and said, I was absolutely disgusted with you that you didn't yell at the referee. He was disgusted with me. And I was saying, wrote him and said, there's a process here. And, if we're complaining about the referee, first of all, you don't yell at referees because you're probably getting them next week. And that's not how you conduct yourself in the bench. And if we think that the referee is letting too much go, we send in a report to Hockey Alberta. But that's the kind of thing. The parents saying something like disgusted with the coaches. I'm sitting on the bench like, what do I have to do with somebody that body checks some girl? But, so if you got parents like that, it's not that much fun. So my assistant coach did a lot of spring hockey. And now we knew the parents, and we were really conscious of not having anybody around that's going to undermine what we're doing. And that's why we, at the end of the year, we had more success. But we could have had that last year too if referee didn't disallow 2 goals we scored in the playoffs. So, it's more about enjoying the season.
I don't know it. In my role, I just sit back and observe. And this past season's been really positive. And I just spend time with the parents watching games. And I think the culture has changed, a development culture versus we got to win now. And my daughter's got to play critical situations because she's a better player. And they've taken they haven't taken the winning out of it. They've taken the sort of the selfishness out of the game in terms of everybody developing and playing like a team. So is that a problem, Peter Craig, in the US, in the hockey you've worked in over the years?
I feel like proactive conversations go a long way. That's like one of the first things I say of like parent expectations is we don't like yell at referees, things like that. We actually try to shut up on the bench, but I mean, inevitably you're gonna have, people be people regardless of where it is in the world. But try to have, to Tom's point, just the right routes of handling things. Is it something that you need to talk about with the association, the referees association, just have a one-on-one conversation with the kids of like, life's not fair sometimes. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's more of a feel on the coach, but also just making sure, as always, try to set as much expectations up front as we can.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Wally. I mean, in my experience, the last couple of years working with the youth organization, there's a code of conduct that USA Hockey has that the parents all read and sign, and or they sign it. I don't know how many of them actually read it based on some of the reactions and some of the chatter that you get. But it's really difficult, I find, to be objective with your child for some people because you love your child, you want the best for your child. You don't want to be negative with your child, so there certainly is the rose-colored glasses issue that that goes on with parents. There's no question about that. But to Greg's point, I think you have to be a parent up front. You have to be transparent up front. You have to understand what their expectations are, make them understand what your expectations are, and just you have to continue to reinforce that because as the coach, you should be the one that is the more even keel person. That doesn't always happen in youth hockey, and especially in town youth hockey, because many of the coaches are actually parents, so they can tend to be a little bit unreasonable in what their idea of success and development is. But at the end of the day, trying to act in a way that best suits your child is good. And I'm a big fan of always when I had my kids growing up was hopefully there were things that they did fail at, because if they didn't fail at things, they didn't learn anything. And especially in sports, the more you fail, the better you get to a certain point, right? There's a certain degree. You have to have a modicum of success, but you learn from your failures, and that failure may be something on the ice, it may be an issue in the locker room with a teammate, whatever it may be. But trying to keep the parents in today's world of insta everything on track is certainly a challenge that I've seen in the youth organizations around here.
You mentioned the learn to fail. Tom, we had the banquet on Sunday night with Girls Hockey Calgary. There must have been close to 1,000 people there, players and parents. The guest speaker, former soccer player, that's what she talked about. And she's working in mental health now. And what a great conversation. what did you think of that speaker, Tom? You can talk a little bit about her takeaways in terms of the message she was delivering.
Well, she talked about she being an elite soccer player, and she was trying out for a provincial team, and she didn't make it. She was, a call up, and she talked about what her choices was, to pout and quit or all this kind of stuff, or just really work hard. And it was a good time because a week before, all of those kids had tried out for the Alberta provincial team, and like the two girls I was talking about, that no way in the world they shouldn't be on it, weren't on it. And it was very suiting. It was great that she talked like that, but not everything's fair, and it's how you respond to it. And she talked about how she responded, and when they played some exhibition games, she got to play, but she didn't get to go to the nationals or something like this. But the coach told her after, I really made a mistake with you. I'm sorry. You should be on this team. And I thought it was it was really good for that time, just because of what had just happened to about a whole bunch of them. Yeah, she was very good.
Yeah.
And the other speaker there played for me a few years ago, and she's going to be on our coaching staff. She wants to join our coaching staff next year. So that was kind of too.
Was that the MC, Laura?
No, this was Brooke. She spoke later.
Okay. Well, it was a pretty good banquet. I was pretty impressed with the whole thing, and I think it was a pretty positive season for everybody. And I give credit to Hockey Canada because they've come up with a mission statement that they took 2 days to develop. This was over 15 years ago. I don't know that they've revisited it, but I recommend everybody revisit their mission statements, talk about what they mean, and are they walking the talk of that statement? But Hockey Canada's is bang on. It says to lead, develop, and promote positive hockey experiences. And I think you could all look in the mirror and say everything we do, you do, wherever you are coaching, emulates a positive experience. And that may mean being demanding and them learning they haven't earned to be playing situations. But that's what sport's all about, is to educate you. So, Jordan, we've been talking about the guest speaker at the banquet a little bit and learning from failure. I wonder if you could comment on her talk and the banquet in general, some of your takeaways from the banquet. I think Jordan's got somebody in the office there. I could see him looking to the south. So, Tom, are you going to go up to watch any of the Alberta Challenge, or are you off in a hockey tournament?
No, I couldn't play anyway. I hurt my ribs pretty bad.
How
But
are you?
they're about 80% better. But no, I'm not gonna go watch that. Just I don't know, it might be on that what's that called? Flow Hockey or something?
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be some on there. I watched some of it.
Sorry,
Well-
well, yes, I had someone at the door that was
Okay.
just as you asked me that question. I had somebody that needed my attention for a minute.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, Jordan.
I really appreciated that speaker, and actually, it was ironic that last night that ended up watching a little bit of women's professional soccer. As it was the season opener or league opener between Calgary and Vancouver, and because of her talking about soccer, it kind of, I guess, intrigued me a little bit. But yeah, the whole piece that she talked about with failure, and had been a player that had been on the provincial squad 2 previous years, and then ended up being basically a practice player and an alternate. Was hard on the ego, but she worked her way through it, and I think that interestingly enough, the one piece that she didn't touch on that I think that I overheard in bits and pieces of what some of you were talking about previously is that she talked about how she felt. She didn't talk about how her parents felt. And I think that that parents piece is a big piece of it too, big piece of the puzzle of whether a kid can come back from it. Her parents obviously allowed her to be resilient and allowed her to come through that struggle and probably supported her in her work rather than justifying it and saying that oh well, the new coach, or oh well, it's obviously there was politics behind the scene or that sort of thing. So I think that that piece is, I know the parents uh, probably mean best by trying to take the sting away from their kid, and that there's probably a little bit of them that's feeling embarrassed and hurt by it too. But it's one of those pieces that I think that they all need to understand the role that they play in helping that kid to get through something like that. Um, I heard a rumor the other day. As you know, Wally, I'm mentoring with the Alberta Challenge, and I heard a rumor that a parent was suggesting that I had something to do with the draft list. And it's kind of one of those things that um, they didn't understand at all. Obviously, the role that I play as a mentor is I play the least important role when it comes to team selection that there is. My role is to guide the coaches in or having them think about what types of players they want to select and how they're evaluating, support them in those processes, and support them in going through the draft. But when you see the list of kids that are on the team that my group picked, they're 100%. There's some players there that I would have picked, and 100% there are players there that I wouldn't have picked. But it's just how it works. It's theirs to do with, and I'm just there to support them. But it was interesting how a parent of a child that did not make a roster was trying to then say that I had a role in it. And I don't know what ends that is, but I guess because I'm a AAA coach in the organization, that maybe I had some influence, but I can honestly say I had very little influence on it other than telling my coaching staff to ensure that the people that they're picking are to the style of play that they want to play, and making them, that was always the litmus test for them, was to go back to what is it that you want to be? And they said they want to be a hard compete team with lots of speed. So every time when they were looking at players in the draft, I said, okay, how does that fit with the identity you're trying to create? And if it was a big player that they competed but didn't have any speed, I would say, okay, versus the next player, there was a big player that had compete and speed. Well, that's who they went with. So it was kind of interesting in those pieces. But I guess that's a
Learn that.
ramble, Wally.
No, I like that because we began talking earlier about one of the players that wasn't selected, and I know you talk about the coaching staff wants an identity,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're going to do their selection based on identity. And one of the missing things for coaches is hockey IQ. Do they recognize players that see the ice, make better decisions, position, complement the mental side of the game? And that's the thing that I think's missing when I work with GHC. Boy, our teams compete. The kids are all coachable. but they need to learn to think the game with the skill sets they've got. So their skills are great. They compete 100%, but there are players on their teams that see the ice, don't appear to compete, and don't have flash and dash with their speed with the puck. But they're smart and they make plays. They don't make mistakes. They scan the ice. And I think that's a missing quality that we don't see and we don't teach. And if we have to begin to, at some point, teach them to apply those skills and make better decisions, better plays, not be the last ones to touch the puck, not play 1-on-5 hockey. And I think we are missing out on some smart hockey players that maybe don't catch your eye of their because they don't compete, don't skate as fast, and stand out. Because very few coaches, that's why in the evaluation, Jordan, I had them evaluate 3 traits, and I asked them all in the team they were selecting, how do you rate their skill? How do you rate their hockey sense? How do you rate their compete? Score those 3 traits. And if you ignore hockey sense, I think that's something we have to be better at recognizing on the bench as games are played and commenting on what they're doing well and supporting the play and getting your eyes up. And it's a missing part of the game, period. And it's 1-on-5 hockey. That's a term I just heard yesterday talking to a parent, one of the daughters who didn't make the team. And he mentioned that he felt his daughter didn't stand out like all the others that made the team, but she certainly complimented everybody else and they were better playing with her. So no hard feelings, just making sure we spend more time assessing hockey IQ. And at a younger age, are they thinking? Are they looking? Is their head up? Or are they just tunnel vision? Does that make
Yeah, I agree with you, Wally, in many of those things that, but I would also say that it is a short-term competition camp. And so then there's another piece that goes to it as well. And that piece is when you're evaluating players and you're looking at things and you see some of the flaws that players may have, you have to remind yourself that you're not working with them for 7 months. You're not going to change who they are in 7 months. You're going to change it. You're going to have them for 5 days. So that's a different, totally different beast than a club team. And are there players that get missed? Absolutely, there are, because of the compact nature of the camp, and that happens. And as the skill level goes up to where it is now, and as it continues to climb, that will be something that does continue to get missed. That there will be players, and there are ones that are interchangeable, 100%. When you look at some of the players who made it and some that didn't, there are some that are 100% interchangeable. As far as girls hockey Calgary goes, I think that they should be pleased with having over half of the team, half of the players on the teams represented by girls hockey Calgary. And I know that that doesn't make it any better for those that didn't make it, but the simple math is that there are 6 AA teams in the South in that league, and only 3 teams are made out of that camp. And that doesn't include players who are playing, one was playing with me in AAA. It doesn't include girls who are playing boys hockey. And it doesn't include girls that are playing at sports schools that also come to those camps, or kids with community. And I think that the most important piece that needs to be recognized too, though, is that some of those kids, there's the odd kid from community that makes it, and that they get rewarded for the development that they've done. over the time too. Just because you've played at the U15 AA level does not guarantee you a spot and should not guarantee you a spot. So that piece to it as well. But it's one of those pieces that, as you've said to me many times before, Wally, that even coming out of that competition, that there will be 1/3 of the players that will do exactly what you think they will have done. There'll be 1/3 of your players that'll outperform what you thought, and there'll be 1/3 of your players that'll underperform. And so it's a snapshot in time, and just keep working your way through it. So
Jordan, your team in particular, you had a player that absolutely developed and peak performed when it mattered the most at the end of the season. Um, how did you see that player evolve? And how do you as a coach uh, regard that kind of progress? And when did you recognize it?
Well, she's a player, Wally. You're talking about my club team now with the AAA team. She was a player that played with me on our AA roster the year previously. She's an extremely hardworking player and a tremendous kid. And as you know, with the way the league is in ours, we're allowed to commit players early. She was a player that we didn't commit and give her an early commitment, and that was partly because she was coming off of an injury. She'd separated a shoulder or dislocated a shoulder in playoffs before a provincial tournament the previous year, and so she's coming off that injury, but also wanted to see how much work she put in over the summer, and she didn't disappoint. She absolutely was a beast in the gym, obviously, and she was ready to go when she got to camp. She outperformed some of the players that we did early commit at camp, as well as she was one of the top fittest players out of our fitness testing. So then she continued to work through the season, and we worked with her, and she was a kid that her and a couple other players that at practices and stuff that they'd compete against one another, and they also would call out their other teammates in certain situations as to, well, why didn't you get her stick in front of the net or things like that. But in practice, not in games, and just trying to get better. And as you said, she did peak at the right time when it got down to the last part of our season. She scored 5 goals in our last 6 games, including 1 in each of our 3 playoff games. And the types of goals she scored were the hard-nosed goals of going to the net front of the net. And making sure that she was there and finishing rebounds, and big strong girl, and out of the kids that coming out of our team, that she's a kid that I think that should be getting some serious looks at U Sport here over the next 6 months or so leading into Christmas. That I think that she should be one that should be a U Sport commitment, and because of the type of player she is, she's probably going to end up being our captain of our team. And going from a player that wasn't early committed to the captain of the team in one season.
No. Well, that's a great story. I think every team has players that stand out, and I just love the players that work hard and get better and better and better, and they really are good team players first. It's not that the more talented ones aren't. They want to win. They're a little more driven. You can call that selfish if you wish. But the line between individual outstanding performance and getting results as a team is, I think, what we're talking about is whether it's the superstar in the NHL or whether it's a best player on an elite team, you're only as good as your weakest links. I think that's something that a good team does. The players respect one another top to bottom. And when you have that, you're going to have success developmentally, and it'll show on the scoreboard eventually. unfortunately, there isn't a lot of patience with some parents. I think the kids by themselves appreciate it, but they're being driven to achieve and with
Yeah.
expectations that may not be realistic. So,
Just a second.
okay.
I gotta hop off here, off this call and go back to a couple of tasks here, so.
Good.
hope you
Back
have
to
a great
work.
day.
Peter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, see you, Jordan.
I've got a question here. NHL. Peter, I don't know if you follow it or not, but Tom, you watched the Flames in the last game. They didn't make the playoffs. They got a standing ovation at the end of the game. Were you at it?
Yeah, I was there.
Can you just talk about the Flames and the feeling about the team in this town? And
Well, everybody was happy this year because they competed hard. Their games were entertaining, and they got more points than teams in the East that made the playoffs. They've got 94 points right now, and they could end up with 96 and not make the playoffs, which is usually 95 is the kind of cutoff thing.
no,
But I took a look, and I wrote something about it the other day. I took a look at the standings, and Calgary and Vancouver lost 14 overtime games, so they got 1 point. And Minnesota and the Blues were the teams that beat them out, and they lost 8 and 7 overtime games. So if they would have won, either overtime or shootout, if they would have won half their games, they'd have got 100 points. So that, and I know watching the 3-on-3 with Calgary, they had such bad habits in 3-on-3. The last man stick handling, or doing flybys, going for the puck, swishing it with a stick, and then you're totally out of the play, right? And the other thing is they got a bunch of goals scored on them where two players went in and then hit the trailer.
no.
And the forwards don't know how to play a 3-on-2. So, the classic way to play a 3-on-2 is one player plays a 2-on-1 on the puck side, right? The other player takes a player to the net. But what they continuously did is they both take the players going to the net and let, like, Draisaitl walk into the hash marks and shoot the puck unopposed. And of course, he didn't miss. And I think he scored 2 on them. And they continuously did those kind of things. So if they'd improved that kind of their part of the game, they could have got 100 points to be in the playoffs. So that's a real weak part of their game. That's, that's my kind of fan as a coach view of the whole deal, is they didn't know how to play 3-on-3.
See, Tom, playing 3-on-2, you've described an attack triangle where there's 2 wide drives and a trailer.
Yeah.
And today there's triple drive, middle drive.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what I actually saw in 3-on-3 overtime.
Yeah.
And I saw them, they gave up shots that all the time, that they didn't know how to play a 3-on-2.
I agree with you, because the 3-on-2s were more conventional to our day of hockey. It wasn't triple drive because you're all going to get caught deep.
Yeah, well, I think in 3-on-3 you end up with the other one, right? Because you
Yeah.
have one player behind, because he's, it's on 5-on-5. Basically, if you're racing them down on the ice, you do the middle drive.
Yeah.
And if they're in front of you, then you have to create a 2-on-1 on one side.
Yeah.
And try to make decisions.
Yeah.
That's how I teach it anyway.
Peter, what's your take on like teaching playing rushes? Because the rush used to be nothing but an attack triangle. And now it's triple drive. I call it a flat triangle or middle drive. But how do you teach defense to defend that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot what Tom was just saying here, obviously, and like for me, I think one of the things that's become more and more important because of that, like you're talking about, like you're describing it as like a triple drive, is the importance of back checking, coming in with a purpose, picking up someone, right? You see it in games all the time. You see back checkers come in and they're coming back, but they don't have a real purpose, right? So I think it's important to have that back checker so it can create more of a not necessarily even man situation, but more of a conventional situation, right? If it's a 3-on-2 and we can get the back checker, or even if it's a 3-on-1 and we can get a back checker, that allows your defender to play a more conventional 2-on-1 situation. So to me, the most important thing is having that back checker coming into the play with a purpose, picking up that third, most often your more dangerous player.
They call it sorting it out, eh?
Right.
And,
A lot of communication, a lot of pointing, I think is important, which don't see a lot of that. It's funny, like you brought that up, and I was watching some 2-on-1s drills that they were doing, and the amount of times the defenders were just allowing that pass across and not doing anything to kind of dictate, just sort of essentially either standing there with your stick in the middle between the two of them, or just kind of waving your stick. There was one thing that a fellow told me about, and I might have this wrong, so I apologize if I have the player's name wrong, but I think he told me Ken Danico said he was taught to point the toe of his stick at the puck carrier in a way that he would essentially you're coming from a position of strength where you're dictating a play. I'm pointing my stick at that puck. Now that puck carrier knows that I have focus on them. And then following that puck where it goes with the toe of your stick, he said broke up more, the way it was explained to me, broke up more plays than you could imagine. Because you were less reacting and more dictating than reacting to where that puck was going. So I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it seemed pretty effective, and I saw like I tried to teach some of my D to do that when I was coaching in college, and it worked pretty well. And then I just randomly saw it was a girls U16, it was a AA tryout, and there was one defenseman that was doing that, and I'm not exaggerating. A pass never got across. Pass never got across. She was that good at it. So I found that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I remember talking to this ex-pro, and he played a couple of games for Detroit, but mostly in the minors. And he played with us for years, and he it was almost like the puck carrier is passing to him. And I said, Huck, what do you do? You know, you break up more 2-on-1s than anybody I've ever seen. And he says, forwards are so stupid. This is his thing. He says, as soon as they get him in between, he says, then I fake I'm going to them. He says, I take one step towards them, and then I drop back in the hole. And he says, when I take that one step, most of them panic and throw the puck across, and they pass right to me. So that's another.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you ever know Dennis Huckaluck, Wally?
No,
yeah, I do.
Yeah, well, that's what he said. Now, and he always amazed me how seldom anybody got a scoring chance on 2-on-1s against him.
Dave King called it bluffing.
Yeah,
So, the defensive player faking pressure and holding the lane. But guys, we're using Zoom, eh? Now, Tom, I'm going to share a clip with you guys of a 2-on-1 attack, and it shows you Josh Morrissey's hockey IQ.
was that last night?
Last night. Did you see
That was unbelievable play.
So I'm going to show this clip because I want to experiment with sharing clips, Peter,
okay.
because it's like this kid is such a smart player. I'm gonna click on share.
I taught with his dad for 5 years. His dad had this company called D Rules.
Yeah,
All he did is work with D, and obviously pretty effective.
I taught with Tom at Father Lacombe High School.
Yeah, I was with him at Bishop Kid.
I'm trying to get this. Can you guys see my screen?
No, I can't.
No, I just see you.
Yeah, I'm still playing with it. Sorry, guys, but I'd sure like to work this out. I did get your view. Show the participants. You're back on. I'm going to click on share screen again. Thanks for your patience, guys.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's working here, but
So while he's there, Terry Johnson, I coached with him a long time. He played 5 or 6 years in the NHL as a D.
Yeah.
He's going to go to Stockholm with me in a month to the World Championships.
Yeah.
To the coaching conference. He called me last night and confirmed he's going.
oh, that's terrific.
We went last year to Prague, but I learned more about playing defense from TJ.
Yeah.
You know, he was a defensive defenseman.
Yeah. What were some of the things, like I've always found working with the pros years ago, the defensemen were so smart at playing situations. And forwards, they just went like they're on a racehorse. But what did Terry teach you? What are some of the little things?
Well, one of the things is stick placement. He didn't keep his blade of his stick pointing forward. He kept it flat on the ice.
Yeah.
And his elbow back. So he says if you have it pointing forward, they can measure you pretty good to stick in front of your toes and that. So by having it like that and the elbow back, it hides how far you can reach. And he's a big guy, he's 6'3" or so. So that would be an important part of his game is that poke check.
Yeah.
And other things like on a 2-on-1, once the shooter shoots, you turn and you take the stick of the guy going to the net. You know, so that he can't just bang in a rebound.
Yeah.
And 3-on-2, you know, if you're playing the 2-on-1 on the side, that as soon as they do the trailer pass, you jam that guy. You don't let him walk in and shoot. And that's what I was talking about in the 3-on-3, how many goals are scored on the Flames on that. So.
No, like Terry wasn't your flashy defenseman. And they sort of like Luke Chen, eh?
Yeah. Well, TJ, I mean, how much would you like to play against him? Jeez. And there's a few clips on YouTube about him fighting the tough guy in Edmonton. They're about 50-50 fights.
Yeah. And he's such a quiet, unassuming man.
Oh yeah, he's a real student of the game though, boy.
Oh,
He
yeah.
really that was really too bad at SAIT that COVID came because I think we would have won that year of COVID, and then all my players were gone. I was starting a new team.
Yeah.
5 returning players. And then you're recruiting, nobody's playing. So you've never seen these people play.
Yeah.
Because we had a fantastic coaching staff with him and Schumi. Like Schumi coached Makar and there's a guy for Ottawa, their best defenseman. in Calgary, and the kid that left Edmonton, Holloway, to go to St. Louis. He coached all those kids through the Flames organization.
Guys, if screen shares comes up, let me know because I'm playing with it. And I'm trying to see if I can get the darn thing to work because this is such
Not so far.
such a valuable tool.
Well, people seem to like Zoom better than they.
Oh, I'll
With
learn
the
how
other
to use it. There's no doubt about it.
I just, I've only been on it a few times like this.
Yeah.
It is
Oh.
something you could use for team meetings, do team play and all that.
Well, I'll figure it out. I'm gonna play with it. Just learn to master it. But look, guys, I want to thank you for coming on. I settled into my new home and I think I'm gonna survive for a year or two here. And look forward to staying in the rink, Tom, and watching your team play. And I hope to get to more practices. But looking forward to what's happening in the Alberta camps and watching our kids continue to show well. And we just want to make them be smarter hockey players growing up. That's my biggest peeve here. I'm so impressed with their skill and their compete. I just want them to be smarter. And that's
Yeah,
rest.
well, that's the key right there. One thing I want to say that I did with the parents differently this year, because of course, if they got their girl in hockey, they probably played hockey. So a lot of them played pretty good level and they coach.
Yeah.
So what I did is I had a meeting that I quickly went through all our team play so that the kids, I didn't want the kids to be getting one story from one person, you know, so that they knew what we were doing. And I think that helped as well.
Did you have any added value? Did they offer you different opinions or ask questions?
Well, they asked a few questions, but I think I kind of think that when Jim and I are talking to most of them, they've played or whatever. But when you play, it isn't coaching, right? You
Yeah.
don't have the same, you know. I think considering that I've coached 22 college teams and pro in Europe, that probably have a little better grasp on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Than most do. But at least to get them so they understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. I think that's beneficial. And you know, the ones that really appreciate it were the mothers that had never played.
Yeah.
So they said, we really like that. So we know what, you know, we know why they're doing things out there.
Yeah. No, that's terrific. I mean, I think that's what we have to do.
Yeah, there's always always things we're trying to see if they work.
Well, I didn't get it working today, but I'm going to keep playing with it. And I may give you a call later in the week, next week, Tom. Just you and I go on Zoom and see if we can get it working. I might get Jordan to come on with us. And
Well, Jordan probably knows how to do it because
Yeah.
he does that all the time. I just
Yeah.
got to put a leash on my dog in case my cat walks in. My dog doesn't like my cat.
Okay, guys. Thanks
All right,
for
Wally,
your
take care,
time.
Wally, take care, Tom.
Take care.
Yeah, good seeing you, Peter.
You too.
What do you think, Mika? Okay, Wally, I gotta go. My dog's down here. I gotta take care of her.
Take care.